Greetings, viewing audience. My name is Solis. I'm the proud president of Brazosport College. This is the second part in our Women's History Month leadership series. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Chomp Talk at Brazosport College. Today, I am really privileged to have three really amazing guests that I'm going to let them introduce themselves in just a bit. But as we continue our series on leadership and all the things that make amazing leaders, we're proud to bring the highest caliber of individuals that serve as leaders in our community. And today, I'm going to turn it over to our guests, but you're going to be really excited about the amazing women that we have in the booth today. So, ladies, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Chomp Talk. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Phyllis, let's start with you because I know that most of you will not need introductions to the viewing audience, but we're going to start off with some very general, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into the questions. So.
Good morning, Dr. Solis. It's good to be here. And
Phyllis.
these other outstanding women. Phyllis Saathoff, I'm the Executive Director and CEO for Port Freeport. Came to the community in 1983, and it's been great to be here, but it's just truly an honor to work for Port Freeport and be a part of such an important engine for the community.
Absolutely.
So, thanks.
Well, we're glad that you're here. I know you're very, very busy. All of you are. Thank you for taking time to spend the day with us. Yvonne.
All right. I'm Yvonne Mintz. I'm the editor and publisher of the Facts newspaper. And that's the way local folks know me. I also am the vice president for ethics and content for Southern Newspapers Incorporated, which is the parent company of the Facts. We have 10 newspapers all over Texas, and I play a role in managing those as well.
Great. Thanks for being here, Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Meredith.
Meredith King. It's so good to be here with all of you. And I'm the founder and CEO of True to Life Ministries, a nonprofit that serves Brazoria County. And I'm also a leadership and nonprofit strategist. And so kind of similar to Yvonne, I get to work with leaders in all different contexts across the state and beyond. So it's really an honor to get to have this conversation.
Well, Meredith, welcome back.
Thanks.
So you've been on the podcast before, but for the viewing audience, two of the three guests are previous or current. Phyllis Saathoff is the current Woman of the Year for our community. Outstanding. Congratulations. Great selection. Meredith, you were in that role last year. Mm-hmm. So for the members of the selection committee that might be watching this podcast, hint, hint, Yvonne Mintz should be your next one. So
I'm just happy to be in their company.
Well, we will be glad to nominate you for the role because you guys are all amazing.
Yes.
So I understand that role comes with a cape. Phyllis, we were talking about that earlier, that there's a superhero a uniform that comes with it because of all the work that you do in our community. So congratulations. What an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It really is an honor, but it's more than just me in the community. It's a reflection of the community overall and great people I work with. So.
Yeah. It's always interesting to sit in the audience. Who are they going to pick? Who are they going to pick? And then once they start weaving the story, I say, oh, I know who that is. That's Phyllis. That's Meredith. That's soon to be Yvonne. So yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. Outstanding. I'm going to start with a very general question to kind of start the conversation. You have all done amazing things in your careers. You are not just community leaders, but you've accomplished so much in your respective careers. If you could go back 20, 25 years to a younger version of yourself, what would be one bit of advice that you would give an up-and-coming leader like yourself 25 years ago that you know now that you wish you would have known then? Yvonne, we'll start with you.
Sure. I knew it then, and I repeat it now, that really when you're in the trenches, when you're working hard, you're trying to establish yourself in a career, I always was of the mindset, keep your head down, do the work.
Okay.
I used to tell myself all the time, do the work, do it to the best of your ability, keep your head down, and people will notice. And that happened for me. And it's truly, I repeat it to my own children now. That's happened to me, but people recognize something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself as far as leadership capabilities. And just from the hard work and the good attitude that I had, I was recognized to become the managing editor. And then after 13 years of that, I became the publisher in charge of the whole business operation. So, and it was all to me from doing the best very best I could, keeping my head down and
making it happen.
Yeah, making it happen.
So for the viewing audience, the first part of the suggestion is work hard to get to your goals and your dreams, right? That's a big part of it. So many times we talk to young people, they're like, well, I want to be Yvonne Mintz. I'm like, Yeah, do you know what it took Yvonne to get there? Right?
I mean, even
yeah.
my kids, they don't remember the amount, the hours and the work. And I still keep crazy hours and still have a lot of stress involved, but it's a different level of those things. And so many people don't see the work that goes into and the time. And you bring something important up in that people want instant gratification
Absolutely.
much more now, I
Yeah.
think, than they did.
It's
you
called the
know.
iceberg effect. We talk about it all the time because we deal with young people that show up. They're like, okay, what does it take to be a vice president or the president? We're like, well,
Yes.
about 30 years worth of grinding it out, all the
Right.
trials and tribulations. And they're like, no, I don't want to hear about that. I just want to know about your title, how much you get paid, and I want to be that next week. So
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't work that way, right?
No, it does not.
But you got to work hard. I'm a big believer in that. And, there's a lot of different takes to the world of work now. I think, the whole work-life balance is stressed a little bit more, which I think is an appropriate piece to it. But those individuals like yourselves that really rise to the top, I would suspect that every single one of you, if I talk to anybody in the community that knows you, the first thing they say, they're extremely hardworking. They're very dedicated to their craft and passionate
hope
about
that's
what
the
they
first
do.
thing they say.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, if you get to where you're at in your careers and you've all been very accomplished, it's not because you didn't work hard, right? Very few people are going to get to a station like you have in your careers without putting the work in. So, Phyllis, what about you? What would you tell a younger version of yourself?
Well, obviously, we're all very, very driven.
Yep.
And just like Yvonne, tried to give more than what was expected in everything that I did. But I would tell my 25-year-old self that it's okay not to be perfect
Yeah.
at everything. You can strive for excellence, but perfection is really not attainable, and especially if you really want to progress, because you have to step outside your comfort zone
You do.
and do things that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And mistakes are where you learn.
You learn. That's where you grow.
You do. You
That's
grow.
where you grow.
And I struggled with that growing up. And everything I did, I wanted to do it perfect, and I wanted to do it perfect every time. And so then you get into a cycle of, well, you try to excuse it away. Well, no, you made a mistake. That's
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
what do you do to do
And,
it better and move through it?
I think you
how
bring
do
up a great point. Part of at least in my journey, the best lessons were the ones that I learned the hard way, right? And
Exactly.
you hope that you surround yourself with people that won't let you make too big a mistake.
Right.
But I remember, we are all part of the human condition, right? And we're going to make mistakes. But to your point, Phyllis, that's how we learn. That's how we grow. That's how we enhance our understanding of what we're doing and our place in that process. Yeah. Meredith, what about you? What would you tell a younger version?
Well, the two of you have offered such great advice to our younger selves. I think maybe something I would add is make it your job to be the chief learning officer
Yeah.
for your career.
Correct.
And we never stop learning.
You don't.
And if we approach learning like it's our job, then we're going to take some of those risks. We're going to make some mistakes, but they're not going to become fatal. We're going to learn from those. That will drive us to certainly work hard. And I think there's so much hope in our professional trajectories when we know that there's more to learn.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that too is taking the initiative to build relationships with people who know things that you don't know, instead of walking into a room and waiting for someone to come to us.
Right.
Taking the initiative to move toward them is a great way to learn.
Absolutely. I think that it's been applicable for each of us in our own trajectories to be a constant learner. I often use the term, you got to be a student of the game that you're in, right? You have to constantly be prepared to bring not just solutions, but I think it's important to know how to ask really good questions so that you can learn what you need to in order to be successful. I think that's a big part of the process. Let me ask you this, and either one of you can tackle this question, but if somebody were to shadow you for a week or two and they spent, unfettered access to what it's like in your daily work lives, what would they be surprised to learn?
I'll go first.
All right.
I think they would be surprised to learn just how much multitasking is required to do the job that I do. I think, and rightly so, because I want everybody to think that their issue is the most important issue to me. But I want the guy who called me this morning to say he didn't get his paper think that he has my full attention for the
Gotcha.
time that I have him. He doesn't know that I'm dealing with an HR concern at one of my other newspapers that I manage in
Yeah.
another county, and he doesn't have to know that. So people in my office who work with me every day really don't know the scope of everything that I do. Number one, it's just not. I don't think it's productive for them to know everything, and not
Right.
that I'm trying to keep it
No,
from them,
absolutely.
but I don't want to appear like I'm making excuses for not getting to their issue
Yeah.
before another part of my job that I need to do. So really, I think it's just how multifaceted my job is and how much pivoting I'm doing all day long between this thing that's on fire, this thing that's important to the employee who's coming into my office. It's the most important thing in their day. So I want them to think it's a priority for me as well.
I will say this, Yvonne, coming up through the ranks, one of the things that I learned was that when you multitask or are involved in a lot of different things, you got to balance and juggle all those aspects of it. But you also do a lot of learning in that process because you get to
100%.
learn a little bit about this and a little bit about that, and you get to add more tools in your toolbox. I had a boss once tell me, he goes, never miss an opportunity to get involved with something. He goes, even though you got other things going on, and he would tell me, because learning is going to take place that it'll be beneficial to you in the future.
Particularly as a journalist. I mean, I think that's really what I've done my whole career, starting out as a reporter, is this much about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because you're talking to people, like Phyllis and Meredith. And so I have, I like to say I have like a 2-inch deep knowledge on pretty much
Right.
everything in this county. I can't be Meredith and know how to run her nonprofit, but I can sure ask her questions and glean knowledge from that. I laugh that I'm going to get my real estate license after having to move the fax building
Yes.
from Clute to Lake Jackson because I learned so much in that process. So yeah, you're learning from everybody you encounter if you're doing it right.
Very good. Phyllis, what about you?
Yvonne, within a week, they'd learn a little bit about what I do, but so many of the things that I deal with take sometimes decades,
Yeah.
to accomplish. So they would find that it's relationships and those contacts through the years that helped me in doing my job today, because it's very diverse from dealing, with the state level, dealing at the federal level, dealing with the local level, and how you
Yeah.
bring people together to collaborate, to influence direction, or to get what you want, get the new customer, and that collaboration among your team, so that
Yeah.
we're all moving in the right direction. And I think that's what they would take away, is that communication, that caring for employees, and the respect for what it takes for the organization to excel.
Right.
Individuals can excel, but if it's not
That's right.
organization-wide,
Yeah.
and if it's all moving strategically in the same direction, then we're not at our best. And those are the types of things that I like to talk about, especially when we bring on new employees that have come from the private sector and move into management level. It's a little different working at the port than it is in the private sector, and it's an interesting conversation when we have that and how you transition.
So that multifaceted piece, the vision. I think the vision piece, Phyllis, is probably the most nebulous for someone who's young in their career. How do you determine vision?
Yes.
How do you figure that out? We're going to get back to the piece on relationships in just a bit. But Meredith, what about you? What would they be surprised to find out?
I think my children have been surprised at seasons where I've worked from home a lot, how many meetings I'm in.
Right.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so
We
when
need
I-
to work our contracts to get paid by the
Yeah.
minute.
Right?
We just got to figure that piece out. So, yeah.
one time, I can't remember which daughter it was, but she said something to the effect of, "Is that all you do? Is just go to meetings?" Yeah, I mean, that's where 75% of the work happens,
Yeah.
is in
That's it.
meetings with other people. And that might be supporting them or removing roadblocks for them or answering questions or problem solving or casting vision or whatever. But yeah, most of the work does actually happen in meetings because in this season, everything is collaborative.
It is.
And so that's really important. And I think they'd be surprised by that. I think the other thing, especially in my line of work, I think people assume that my job is primarily helping our neighbors, and it is. But really, my job is making sure that the staff at True to Life can help our neighbors for the long haul.
Yeah.
And so I think people might be surprised how much of my time is spent on business and finance. I think they would be surprised about how much of my time is spent thinking about our community 5 and 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Right.
And much like two of you in the organizations that you lead. And I do think that would be surprising to people. I think there's probably a lot more business and finance to my job than many would assume. And I think I live my life in.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that, being leaders, for anybody who's aspiring to be in a leadership role, understanding where the pennies go, where the pennies come from, how you use them wisely, how you can look a constituent in the eye and say, we are doing the best with your dollars possible, because it's
a
about
huge
trust. It's a
responsibility.
huge responsibility, because when we're out in the community, and we are all at different places in the community wants to know, is the organization being run well? Are my investments in your organization wise? And are you doing your job as a steward of the community with the resources that we're providing you? Because we're all in this sector, right? So, but I want to get back to something that you said, Phyllis, about influence in those relationships. As you went through your trajectory, at what point did you figure out that it was more than just being successful, but there's this transition that once you're doing a job, you also then start being influential? How did that? Was there a moment that you realized that it's not just being successful in the role, but being influential so that you could get the things that you want in that vision accomplished?
It was sort of an evolution. I remember early on, I went into public accounting first. I worked in Houston back in the day when it was even Ernst and Winnie. I'm really dating
I
myself
bet you
now.
were using a calculator even back then.
You had to take the CPA exam with no calculator.
No
No
calculator.
calculator.
Oh,
You walked
okay.
in with your pencil, and that was it.
Oh, gosh.
But
No
you know,
AI.
you progress after a couple of years of a lot of really hard hours, and
Yeah.
you become a senior, and you're suddenly responsible for people.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
how you motivate people and deliver that constructive guidance in a way that doesn't make them feel threatened. I learned early on just changing one word from you to we. I mean, because we're in it together. No audit gets done by one individual, it's done by a team.
That's right.
So that was an early moment that I thought, okay, I do have the ability to help people and, do their jobs better. But at the port, I love doing a job and a task, but I like the vision. I like looking forward. And I'd have ideas, but I had to obviously get the support of the Port
Gotta get the buy-in.
Commission.
Yeah.
I had to get the buy-in,
Yeah.
right? Not only I had to from my boss at the time, because I was in managing director role, but I had to get the buy-in. And Pete Rashek, he was very good about allowing me the space to excel, to reach out and to develop myself. But I'd present ideas to the Port Commission, and there was reluctance. But then you take that information back and you continue to develop
Right.
the ideas, and maybe it's not the right time. Learning that being a little bit patient, learning some patience. That's
Yeah.
another thing that
Hard for all of us.
to
'cause
do.
we're all
I
wired a
wanted
little
that,
bit differently,
I
yeah.
wanted to move and it be everything, go at the pace I wanted.
Yes.
But learning that, be patient, listen, and then package your information to the audience you're trying to deliver it to and show the value in it. And things they get to where that they want to go on that journey with you. So
That influence piece is so important
it
because,
is.
you don't do it by yourself. None of us do.
No.
None of us, and you can't be a leader unless you have people to work
Right.
with, right? So that's an important piece to it. So let me shift gears a little bit for Meredith and Yvonne. Either one of you can tackle this piece. So Phyllis talked about the relationship piece. How important have relationships been in your journey, in the success that you've had beyond networking? Networking, we all do that. We all have our contacts, but I'm talking about these deep, meaningful relationships that you can have those frank conversations with, so you can get that sounding board, right? Sometimes when you're in the role of leader, you're on your own, right? So you're the person. So you have to find those like-minded individuals that you can sometimes just bounce something off. And I've never been ceased to be amazed when you're like, you know what, I had not even thought about it that way, right? So you got to take the time to have those relationships because you can't show up at the door, hey, I need something right now, right?
Right, right.
It doesn't work that way. You have to build these and invest in relationships years out so that when the need is, and it's not just about the need, but we all at some point are going to need someone's feedback, their advice, their guidance, their counsel. Tell me about relationship building.
It's everything.
Yeah.
Eh, In every level of my career, relationships have meant everything to my success.
Yeah.
When I was a reporter I was a reporter for 13 years before I moved into the first level of management that I ascended into. Texting somebody, we didn't do that then. We weren't
No
just
calculator,
texting a
no
list.
texting.
We weren't texting
All
a list
right.
of questions.
aging
We had
ourselves here.
beepers.
Oh, beepers.
And when you got to the
Yeah.
point where someone tipped you to a story via your beeper in the middle of the night, you thought you realized that's because the relationship you established with them,
Mhm.
the trust they have in you, the fairness they see in you,
Right.
that they're willing to put themselves out there and help you in your career. And so that we were the first to get the story that way. So over time, as my role evolved, the relationships that I had, even some that I established way back as a reporter, they're still paying dividends to me.
Mhm.
Dividends to me now.
Yeah.
But as I progressed in my career, it was not so much about just getting to know people, but also us challenging each other's
Mhm.
beliefs in some ways. Behind the scenes, working, to common understanding of an issue or a goal. And so feeling like having someone's trust that they see you, number one, as someone they want across the table from them.
They do.
And then number two, that you will hear them out and listen fairly, listen to hear, not to respond, right? That's one thing that is really high in my mind all the time. Listen to hear and not respond. Then they realize they're more comfortable talking to you, even if you're challenging their views on some things. And that's the way we get to the best stuff, right? Is when we can collaborate on an issue and feel supported by the other person, even if we don't end up on the same side of an issue.
Sure.
Not being threatened by hearing somebody else's opinion, to me, is what is going down in this world that we need
It
to be
is.
building up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, I love engaging with
I
smart
do.
people. That's why I enjoy stuff like this. And you don't have to agree with me all the time. The best stuff happens when we don't agree.
You know, the
Mhm.
environment has changed so much, Yvonne. I used to, and I didn't come up with this. I had a great mentor tell me that in higher education, our role was to constantly threaten each other intellectually.
Mhm.
And that has changed because you now have to approach things in a very guarded manner
Yeah.
because we've lost that ability to disagree respectfully,
Mhm.
provide a case or an argument or data or supporting information, and be able to walk out of there. Hey, Vaughn, okay, we didn't agree entirely on this, but
Yeah.
I'll see you next week at whatever event that we're
Right.
working on. Right? We're losing so much of that. And I think that that's a disservice to that we do to ourselves in our communities and in our relationships because we see it all the time, especially as we become more polarized and more marginalized, and everybody's in their own little corner. I think that leaders have the responsibility to constantly, all the time, push the envelope on that status quo. Because I do it, and I had a presentation that I did on AI, and I was talking about if you really want to get to switching the other person's algorithm, send them things that you know that they don't agree with, right?
Right.
And do that to yourself as well, because if not,
Mhm.
you just end up in a little box,
Right.
Mhm.
recycling the same
Yes.
information, and you
Yeah.
never get to grow. So that idea that we should be able to threaten each other intellectually is less and less, right? But we
Mhm.
should be able to because that's how we grow. So
That's how true relationships get
yeah, that's it.
established.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a room with people who only agree with me all
No,
the
Right.
time.
of course not. What fun is that,
No.
right? So yeah. Unless you're in one of these higher political offices, you're like, yeah, this is great. This is a great way to do it. So, Meredith, what about you? Relationships.
I think relationships really are everything. In my own professional journey, I'm so grateful for mentors who
Yeah.
were
Mhm.
willing to help me see things that I couldn't see on my own, or help me develop skills or knowledge that I couldn't have developed on my own. Years ago, Harvard Business Review put out some articles about what it looks like to have a personal board of directors. So they had done some studies on high impact executives, looking for commonalities in their stories. And so that idea isn't something that any one of them articulated or called it that. They didn't say, I have a personal board of directors, but it was kind of excavated from the conversations had with those leaders. And I think there's such wisdom in that. We do need an unofficial personal board of directors, maybe even for different parts of our lives,
We do.
I
right?
Absolutely.
And I think, you need a connector, people who have access to knowledge and resources that you don't have on your own. The person that always has an article, a link, a class, a course, a contact, to access knowledge. But you also need an encourager. Leadership really can be lonely, and you need someone who is a cheerleader and who's an encourager. You need a challenger. You need the
Somebody.
people
That's a
who
really important one.
who are truth tellers, who ask hard questions that we might not want to volunteer to answer, and who do it for our good. And I think too, in my own leadership life, and then having worked with a lot of senior executives, we all think that our teams tell us the whole truth, and unintentionally they don't.
Correct.
And
So
I don't
true.
think they intend to hide it from us. I think
Sure.
it's part of respect. I think it's part of, in a healthy environment, with the best intentions. It is
Okay.
really difficult to get the whole truth. Not because someone's hiding it. I just
No,
think
it's
it's
just-
hard.
I will say this, in the world that we live in, this is just more of a leadership tip. And then I want to cover something on the relationship piece. I have an AI board of directors, right? So I asked it for all the personas of really great board members just to give me a different
I love
sounding
that.
board.
I like it.
That's
But I also
cool.
got one on legal. So I have a board of directors that will give me legal advice, right, for any employment issues. And then I have one on HR. So you ask it to develop the personas, it puts them in there, and you're like, okay, and then you'll see the discussions. You're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that, right? So it's not on the personal level,
Yeah.
but it is one of these things where it's more on the learning. You take time to learn in the role of leadership. I'll tell you just a quick story about the relationship piece. This was many years ago, we were dealing with a real complicated issue. I'll leave the details out, but it was really complicated. And we had the best minds in the room trying to figure this out. All the leaders, all was like, how are we going to do this? So this was going on over a couple of days. And one of the, entry level position individuals had heard, the scuttlebutt that was going on. He goes, I can get that solved. I said, how are you going to get this solved? Right? We were just having a discussion. He goes, and he'll never forget. He goes, if I get a few days off, I can solve this. I said, how are you going to do it? He goes, I know some people. Going back to the testament,
Wow.
power of relationships. By that afternoon, problem solved. And then my boss goes, how did you guys get that? I says, you don't want to know, but I said, somebody knows somebody that. But to the power of relationships, to this day, that young man who's now gone on through his own leadership journey, there are times that I want, do you know anybody in this space? He goes, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do, because he was a master at these relationships. But here you had all these high level, executives trying to figure out this. We were all at our wits' end. He goes, I heard about this. I know some people that can solve that. I said, I was very suspect. I'm like, yeah, all right. Sure enough, by that afternoon, I said, hey, problem solved. We got it taken care of. But power of relationships. I mean, we can't do it alone, and you need to have those people in all those corners, the encourager, the person who's going to, executive coaches. My executive coach, the first thing he told me goes, I will tell you everything that you don't want to hear, right? That's my job as a coach, right? So it's important. Let me ask this, anybody can respond to this, but in the roles that you're in now, at the level that you're in as leaders, what do you think is more important if you had to pick one, competence or character? Meredith.
I prefer not to choose between the two.
You had to pick one.
Character.
Yeah.
I think because without the character, it's very difficult to build competence that lasts. But I'm a big fan of both of those. And then I would add to that a third C, which would be culture. So I think if you're looking to hire or add someone to a team or to build a team, I think character, competence, and culture are really, really important. competence without character has a really short
It
runway.
is.
It
It
does.
does. It's terrible, and I've seen that many times. I'm a big believer that the character piece it's your rock. It's everything else gets built on that
Yes.
piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, because once the trust is gone, it doesn't matter how good you are at the job. You
Mhm.
could be the greatest person, but if you're not trusted, it's game over. So
And
yeah.
it'll kill your culture.
Oh, it will.
will.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Ladies.
Character, 100%.
Yeah.
To me, it begins and ends with character. Because if we're taking it from an employee perspective, if I'm hiring somebody, or if I've got somebody on my team who I'm considering to give additional responsibilities to, I can teach. I can
You can-
teach
that's right.
skills.
That's right.
You cannot teach character,
Mhm.
and you can model character, and hopefully they pick up on some of that. Let them see you make some hard decisions, some things that it would be a whole lot easier to do it this way, but the right
Yeah,
thing to
right.
do is this way. To me, everything begins and ends with character. And, more and more I'm hearing people mimic that out in the community, telling me the same types of things. I had somebody come to me asking about some candidates in a local election before the primaries. And, what do you think on this person, And listening to their take, it was, well, I feel like this person is more of a straight arrow, would make the right decisions under pressure, would not be swayed by, special interests, or lack of a better term. So I just was just listening to them rather than giving them advice on who
Yeah.
they should vote for.
But it goes back to that
It
character.
went right
That's
back
that
to their
trust.
saying the character was the piece for them, which I was heartened by. In our world, I think we need more of that.
Phyllis, what about you?
Oh, absolutely. You want core competence, but to have someone you want to manage or lead in your organization, they have to have that character. And when I say the character, we choose to live by our core values, to have integrity, to be honest. And life presents you with a lot of situations that it sort of challenges you because it's very uncomfortable sometimes. And I want people that live it at work 100%. I want it in their
Yes.
personal life
Yeah.
because they're in our community. It's just it's something you have to live, and if they're not willing to live that way,
I
then
think that the character piece is so important. In a future podcast, I'm already working on one for down the road after we get past Women's History Month. But we're bringing in members of the clergy, and the questions and the theme is going to be, what happens in someone's character that you see these losses and lapses that can lead to sometimes catastrophic outcomes,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And you often, when you watch this on the news a lot, you're like, how did this person manage to get themselves in that situation?
Right.
And it goes back to that internal rock. You either have that really great foundation where it's unshakable, or you don't. And I'm a big believer that if you have that, those types of decisions, even though they're hard, they're easy to make because you're like,
Right.
this is the right thing
Right.
to do.
Mhm.
Let me ask this. So you're all in the role of hiring people. We talked about culture and who you're going to add. And what do you look for when you're hiring someone?
You
What
wanna
kind
take
of
that
role does
first, Phyllis?
attitude play in that interview?
What role does attitude,
Attitude
play?
yeah.
Mhm.
That
think
energy
that's-
that they bring to it.
I think that's really important in an interview.
Mm.
I'm really interested in how other people describe their attitude, though, because
That's a good point.
you can bring a great attitude to an interview. I've interviewed a few people along the way who didn't, and I
Yeah.
just thought, if
Mhm.
this is your very best,
Yes.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
the attitude is
What's
at
going
a
to happen when
deficit,
they're having an off
Yeah.
day?
then
Mhm.
that ends the conversation really fast. Those interviews are important, but their reputation with others is really telling when it comes to
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah, and I think in the world of AI, everyone is an expert because you can take the job description, you can run it through and say, give me the 15 most likely interview questions that I'm going to encounter, and then answer them for me. So if someone spends the time kind of
Yeah.
memorizing that, anybody's going to sound great. But there are things that you pick up on that energy or scenario-based questions. We've moved to a lot of scenario-based questions
Mhm.
because we all kind of have to learn what those process, because you can't make those mistakes in the hiring. What about you, Yvonne? What do you look for?
Absolutely, attitude matters a lot. If you come in and your shoulders are slumped and you just are
Smiling or
or you're, oh, woe is me, or you criticize your past employer.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
big one to me.
But those
I'm
are
like,
fundamental 101s,
ooh.
and people still do them.
Yes. Yeah, people still do
Yeah.
them. You would think that They
I
wouldn't.
had a young man show up with his mom for the interview, and he goes, "My mom's going to join." I told you, and
Okay.
I said, "No, your mom's not going to join you." And then he goes, "Well, can you tell her?" I said, "No,
No.
you go tell her. You brought her." You know, I said, "Why do I have to
Yes.
deal with that?" You know,
Right.
so
Yeah.
didn't go well for that young man. You know, so it's one of these things that, yeah. What about you, Phyllis? What are you looking for?
Well, as you said, a lot of people can come in sort of prepared answers, and you can tell the difference between somebody reciting something versus
Yes.
really
Mhm.
expressing what motivates them, why are
Mhm.
they applying for the position they're applying for, and why do they want to be at Port Freeport? What is it that even brought them to apply? You
Mhm.
ask those type of questions, and maybe you ask it more than once in a different way, and to see, do
Yeah.
you get a more evolved answer, or are
Mhm.
the answers very short? But I really look for the person that brings that energy and that that personality that will work
Yeah.
with the team you have.
You get better the
Because you
more you
can
do it. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because
It's
you can
spotting
hire
that.
somebody with, that is excelled and they've got all the competencies, but if you can tell that they're not the right cultural personality
Gotta
type
fit.
fit,
Mhm.
then sometimes it's just
Yeah.
best to pass.
Mhm.
And I think that the more important the role is within the organization, the more important that fit is that is in the whole
Mhm.
hiring process. Let me ask this. So we've talked a lot about qualities in leaders, particularly character and integrity and the things that, um, matter in those spaces. What about skills? So in today's world, where you're at now in your respective positions, what are two or three things that you think are really, really important in terms of skills? Not necessarily the qualities, but skills that you're like, yeah, if this person has that skill set, that's somebody who's valuable to the organization.
Digital acumen
Yeah.
is 100% that in whatever role within our organization that I'm trying to fill. I want to know, this is probably unique to me, but I always try to find a way to bring up what is your news diet?
Mhm.
What news do you consume? How do you get your news? That tells me a lot that can tell me a lot about a person on, whether they're still want a physical newspaper, whether they're, what national news organizations that they follow. Do they follow? Do they only watch TV for their news? I mean, that type of thing I think tells me a little bit more about somebody and where they're seeking out their information. But yeah, I want to know those types of things that speak to a broader, will they be a good fit in this place? Are they interested?
Yeah.
That's I think
Mhm.
something that's overlooked sometimes. Is this a curious
Mhm.
person?
Mhm.
Yes.
Is this a person
Curiosity.
curious about the
Yeah.
world around them?
So good.
You
It's
know?
such a great skill to have. Just being
Yeah.
curious constantly about
Yes.
everything.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that's just in a media role. I think that's
No,
really
yeah.
in
Mhm.
anything.
That's
But
actually one of the things I look for.
yeah.
Are you a curious individual?
Yes,
Yeah.
and, digital acumen is one, certainly. I would like you to be able to, no matter your role, even if you're not writing, which most people don't, right, in our
Is it just
organization.
digital acumen or balancing the human side with that digital skill set?
Well, definitely you have to be able to talk to people, and you have to be
Yeah.
able I mean, I'm thinking about so many different roles that I fill within our organization. I'm like, which one do I wanna do,
Right.
which one do I wanna focus on? But, if I'm looking to hire a publisher, another one of our properties, for example, I wanna know how you're involved in your community, how you want to get involved in your community. That's much more than I'm gonna sit and scroll and, and comment from
Mhm.
behind the screen. But definitely how you relate to other people and how you've helped your community matters a lot to
Yeah.
me.
So relationships, digital
Yes,
acumen. Yeah. What about Phyllis
absolutely.
on your end? What are some skills that in this day and age we all need to be successful in any role?
Well, the basis for any role to me is being a good communicator.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that in a bit for
Yeah,
sure.
so
Yeah.
that is so important,
Mhm.
especially working, with Port Commission
Yeah.
on display, as you know, with your board too.
Yeah.
You have to clearly and accurately communicate again, to maintain that trust
You
and
do.
confidence. And for us, that is so important internally in the organization and externally. So again, I pay a lot of attention to their abilities to communicate. Mhm.
I think that's one of the, if you are in any type of role that is going to involve working with human beings,
Mhm.
you need to have the communication. We're going to talk about that in depth because you're all fabulous communicators, and I want to know how you got there. So, That's an important piece. Meredith, what about you? What's a skill that you say, hey, you got to have it in this day and age?
I echo yes and amen to everything that's been mentioned. You know, in our organization locally, we're often seeing individuals make a career shift to come work at
Right.
True to Life. They might be leaving the corporate sector to come, or maybe they have a background in education, but they're, especially in a community our size, it is highly likely that the individuals that we hire are going to be coming from a different professional background. So, one of the things that I'm really looking for is, are you aware of how those strengths translate into this work? And are you already aware of where your learning curve is going to be? Because there is going to
good.
be a tremendous learning curve coming into the nonprofit sector as a whole, but certainly into the type of work that we do. And passion for the mission is important, but that is the minimum price of entry. You don't even get to come sit at the table if you don't have that, but it's not enough to earn a seat in a paid position in our organization.
Yeah, really great points. I want to get back to the communication piece. I have watched all of you at different events, different functions, and you're all really great communicators. I'm a big believer that in any leadership role, you have to be able to communicate, to articulate, to present an idea. You have to be able to persuade, right? Where did you pick up your skills? Meredith, I'm going to start with you because you do this for a living. So we all have speaking as part of our jobs, but if you could give our viewing audience, what are some of the pointers that you would give them about these effective and, in your all cases, very powerful communication skills? How do you develop that?
I think the first step is acknowledging that it's a skill to develop, that it's a craft to hone and dedicate time and resources to. I think sometimes it's easy to assume that it's a natural ability.
Right.
And maybe that's true for some, that they have some natural talent or ability, but great communicators never lean exclusively on natural talent or
You can,
ability.
yeah.
I actually spent about an hour this morning reading through an advice thread where one of the people that I really enjoy following, that I think is a great communicator, he was giving advice to professional communicators. And so I think setting aside time is really important to hone that skill and that ability. So how do you hone the skill and ability? I think you study good communicators, not to try to mimic them, but to notice, how do they stand? How does their communication rise and fall? Where do they introduce laughter? How do they ask questions? What's the pacing of their tone and their words? And becoming a student of that, to notice, and then to intentionally tweak and try different strategies to find what can work in your own personality to be authentic and truly, in alignment with who you are as a person, not trying to sound like someone else. But I think that's really important. I think too, getting feedback and not, hey, how did that go?
Right.
But asking really specific questions. Okay, Dr. Solis, give me some feedback on that opener or my closing. Here's what I was after. Did it accomplish that? Give me a tip that would have made that better. What did I say that felt most confusing? So ask good questions for feedback, because if you ask, hey, how did I do? Most people are going to say, you did great.
Yeah.
So those are just some initial thoughts.
Can I just say, I think Meredith is the best
She's the
communicator
bomb.
in Missouri County.
I have a rule.
No,
This is what, and you should all kind of follow suit. Viewing audience, if you get asked to present, you need to find out who's presenting at that event, and you have to go before Meredith King, because at that point you're gonna feel bad going up.
I know.
Not true.
I was at an event with Superintendent Edwards from Angleton ISD, and he had asked me to present to his team. And he puts up a picture of a gentleman that had come the year before. He goes, well, this person had a terrible presentation last year, and we're never going to bring him back. And he was kind of joking. I'm like, man, the right going out. the pressure, right? So
No
you got to be
photos,
you got to be
please.
prepared for the unexpected, and part of it is who's speaking at the and where am
Yeah.
I at in the lineup, and it
Right.
can't be after Meredith King. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Yvonne and Phyllis? How do you craft it? What do you do to craft this skill?
You know, I think it was a strange crossover for me because I view myself as an excellent written communicator, and
And you are.
Thank you.
I
Yeah.
love it. I
Thank
love
you.
reading your writing.
I love to write. I've always loved to write. It's how I found myself tripped into this career that I ended up in. But at a certain point, I needed to do more of this, and it doesn't always translate.
Mm-mm.
You know, and I found myself trying to be very stilted in what I said, still writing everything out because I wanted to make sure that,
Yeah.
throw that
That's
away.
Throw that away.
Throw that
I tell people
away.
get rid of your
Vivid
scripts.
scripts.
Yes,
The-
yes.
our teams, they know no more scripts because they
Right,
give
no.
me the scripts. I'll be like,
No.
you know, and it drives some people crazy because like
Yeah.
you're not following the script. I'm like,
Right.
that's okay. We will all get through this. I promise you that
Yeah.
tomorrow the sun
Yeah.
will come up
The
and
sun will come
the
up,
birds
it'll
will
be
be
fine.
singing and it will be just fine.
But it's true that you can't just rely on your talent and your, oh gosh, she can talk the paint off a wall. You can't, because every once in a while you'll come up against, when you do that, you'll come up against something that just
Yeah.
tears you down. Mine was I had a horrible failure when they asked me to speak to the National Honor Society induction at Brazoswood High School. Ridiculous. Like, it was literally, they needed 5 minutes from me, but I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I had some basic themes and I just flubbed it. And it was embarrassing. And I told myself, I'm never going to do that again. And I went home and my husband was like, "Where'd it go?" And I was like, "Oh, it was awful." And I was serious. I was like, it was
Yeah.
awful.
You just need
And he
one
said,
of those.
"Oh, no, it wasn't." And I said, "Oh, no, it was this
Yeah.
time." And so you're right. I will
Yeah.
never go into
That's
a
right.
situation like that totally unprepared
You need
again.
one. It's a good learning. It just
Yeah.
can't be. Thankfully, it
Yeah.
was for a smaller group of people,
Right.
you know. But
Yeah.
you only need one, and after that, you'll never be
Right.
unprepared again.
It makes me
So,
happy to think
yeah.
that you maybe have experienced your
Yeah,
one
absolutely.
too. Okay,
Yeah. You
good.
think you're
I
gonna
feel
go in there
better.
and wing it, and then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so yeah, no, absolutely. And hopefully it happens early on in the
Yeah.
career, not at this point where you're making the presentation about budget or some of these other
Right,
things
right.
that are much more consequential.
Right.
Phyllis, you're a great communicator. What's the secret?
Well, and I'm going to date myself too, but just to say that little things in my life early on made the public speaking part much easier. But, even attending a small church, the youth got to lead,
Yeah.
lead services.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that was a safe environment, but we learned a lot through that. And then I had, teachers that were always willing to spend extra time, and I love to compete. So you can do the poetry
right.
readings,
Right.
and I can remember my knees literally knocking together the first time I ever did
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I had my grandmother there. I was safe, but it was just just very different. But I learned to really enjoy that because it was a form of communication, delivering with emotion. Those things really helped me later in life. But then I learned not only did I have to be able to communicate orally, but not everybody listens. Especially in things I'm doing in DC or in Austin, people are pulled in so many directions, and you have sometimes seconds, maybe just
Yeah.
5 minutes in a hallway. How do you deliver a message and that sticks and compels them to want to work with you to
Yeah.
achieve what you need? And I've delivered some books before. I thought I've got all the information I need to go give them everything. That fell
Yeah.
flat. Then I learned a placemat. Tell your story. It's your storyboard.
That's your story.
Oh, I like
And you can carry that anywhere, print it on the heavier paper. It'll hold up. And if all you've got is that hallway 5 minutes,
And that's
you've accomplished what you set out
That's
to
it,
do.
because
Yeah.
that 5 minutes or that 2-3 minute interaction, that little bit of time that they can give you, that's where those big decisions get made. But you got to be
Exactly.
loaded for bear. I always tell people, look, you're going to have that one shot. You
Right.
have to make sure that you not only impress, but that you got your message across. I think the thing that's important about communicating as leaders is, I'm going to use the event that you had where you were giving your update, Phyllis, to the community. There's like 400 or 500 people in there. It's packed with people. And while they may not remember the message, right,
Right.
the details, they'll remember the messenger and how it was delivered and how they made them feel in the process.
Right.
And they walk out of there like, yeah, the port's in great hands. right?
Mhm.
But these skills, to your point, Meredith, for the viewing audience, especially if you're a young leader or want to get in these roles, you have to master communication. Communication is, I don't want to say it's everything, but it's a big part of being effective at what you do. I would recommend also you can record yourself.
Mhm.
You can get
Mhm.
feedback from the AI, which is it's really interesting. But you can also join groups like Toastmasters.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Join a group where you're going to be in a safe environment. A Toastmasters is an amazing group where
Yes.
even for seasoned speakers, there's always someone that can give you some feedback that says, "Hey, you know what? You could have done it. This it's a safe space because then you provide them that same kind of feedback, and you all get better together. We all get better together.
Mhm.
So it's really important. Let me ask this, ladies, and anybody can tackle this. Let's talk about presence, right? So you've got the character, you've got the skill sets, you've got the title, the position, you're making all these decisions. How important is that presence in terms of being respected versus being trusted, right? So how do you get to that level when you're in the role and that presence piece goes a lot to the respect that people have for you? How do you process that? How do you get to that level?
Do you mean from a showing up perspective or from a how you
How you
show
present
up,
your,
how
yeah, how
you
you show
present
up, yeah,
yourself?
Mhm.
how you show up because
Because
that's a
both
big
are
part
so
of
important.
they are
Yeah.
they are but
Yeah.
the part that I'm after is that presence of when you show up when you walk in the room when you know that all
Mhm.
eyes are on you, but what is that process like for you?
A little self-talk before you walk into the
Yeah,
room.
I'm a big believer in that.
A little
Mhm.
self-talk. You know,
Big believer.
I don't think just women have imposter syndrome, but I do think it's really key in amongst women. Is sometimes you think, oh gosh, why am I here? You
Mhm.
know, I mean,
Right.
she's directs the port and has. I mean, you know what I mean? Like there's a piece that I think all of us innately think, am
Right.
I worthy of being in this
Mhm.
space? And I'll give you an example. I testified in front of the legislative committee last session about the importance of newspaper notification,
Mhm.
of media. I shouldn't say because the newspaper's not just this anymore, right? But
Mhm.
of people, public entities needing to publish their notices other than just in a little corner on their own websites.
Right.
Okay, so why is it still important that they use the public square, which is us, our websites, right? So I went in and I was wholly intimidated in this room when I first walked in. This was just in last year in January.
Right.
I was wholly intimidated. I didn't know the process. I wasn't familiar with. Luckily, I had some colleagues there who testified, often, and but I was wholly intimidated until people got up and spoke, and I realized I know more than
Yeah.
anybody else in this room
That's
right.
because I'm the only
Yeah.
person here who actually runs a news organization.
Right.
Nobody else was there where they were talking about us and around us, but not to us. And within 5 minutes, I thought, not only do I deserve to be in this room, I'm the most important person in this room. So a lot of it's a mindset,
I'm a
knowing that you belong there.
yeah,
Right.
I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
I often tell people, look, you have to be your own best internal cheerleader.
Yes.
You have to tell yourself
Mhm.
repeatedly, I got this. I belong here.
Right.
I can
Yeah.
do this. I think one of the things I often work on is if I know that I've got for example, I've got a big presentation I got to do in
Mhm.
Houston in a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I do when I'm, because you get requests to speak at all kinds, we all do, right? So
Mhm.
Right.
I say, okay, I want access to the facility where it's going to be
Mhm.
at least an hour before. And the reason is because you get settled in.
Right.
You get settled in. You're the first one there. You don't show up, and there's like all of a sudden
Right.
200 people watching you.
Right.
You gotta have those internal conversations.
Yeah.
No matter how many times we do this,
Mhm.
because that responsibility is you have to make sure that you deliver a good performance every single time.
Right.
But that
Yeah.
internal voice,
Well, you
so
have
important.
to understand what you bring to the table too.
Mhm.
And we know that. I think we, as women in our fields, we know what we bring to the table. We know the importance of the message that we carry. But sometimes the doubt creeps in.
Mhm.
So you have
So
to
how
be
do you
able
let
to.
it not creep in? How do you keep because this is what I tell people that I
Mhm.
mentor. I said inside. I'm a big fan of Godzilla. We've talked about this before. I love Godzilla. I think there's so many metaphors that come with Godzilla, but I said inside you, there's a Godzilla.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
giant in there. Everybody has them, but you have to figure out ways to tap into that energy,
Mhm.
bring that out, so that you have that confidence. And it's not overbearing confidence.
Mhm.
It's just a belief that says, hey, look, I've got all the skills, I've got all the qualities, I belong at this table, and I can bring something of value.
Mhm.
And I think that to Meredith's point earlier about that purpose, when you're at that table, there's more than just the title, right? You
Mhm.
have a responsibility to provide that input where
Right.
those decisions are being made about important things that impact our community.
Right.
So that purpose part is what helps me a great deal. I'm like,
Mhm.
I need
That's
to
it.
be there because someone's got to have the voice that for the things that are important to the
Yes.
college, right? So
Right.
I
Mhm.
think we all have that. So what
I
about
But
you, Phyllis?
I would say one of the things that I learned, and it took me a long time to really learn
Yeah.
this, there is a beginning and an end, and we worry so much about what's going to happen in
In
the
between.
middle,
Mhm.
and that's where we gin up all of the anxiety.
Yeah.
If you've prepared,
Yep.
then quit worrying about what's in the middle because
That's right.
enjoy the start, and then it'll be over before you know
That's
it.
That's
right.
it.
And
Mhm.
you're fully capable. You wouldn't be in the role that you're in or
Right.
be
Yeah.
asked to speak. So you're so much more prepared than you think. It's
Yeah.
just again, I tell young people that all the time. That's
Yeah.
where we worry about the middle. You've done the worrying is prepping. Make
Yeah.
sure you
Mhm.
got everything and you're ready, you're prepared, and
I
you
also
go.
tell folks, hey, make sure that you take the time to invest in making sure that you have what it takes to deliver that really great message, right?
Right.
That presence. You walk in there, you take that activity that you're working on, and you get to that home run, right?
Right.
Because what will happen afterwards, they're like, hey, can you come speak at this? Can you come
Yeah.
speak at
Right.
that? Can you
Always.
do
That's
this?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that's where that um, uh, you get that reassurance that went really well, right?
Mhm.
That's an
Yeah.
important part
And
to
you
it.
always dress the part. I mean,
Of course.
throughout my career, I just had a
Yeah,
standard
there's a
how I
uniform. There
wanted to
is.
present myself, and I
Yeah.
did
Mhm.
and any time I deviated from that, I was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
got to
And
be natural. You got to
Mhm.
be who you are,
Yeah.
right?
and
Yeah,
that's right. I buy classy clothes. I'm not a
Mhm.
yeah,
trendy
Right.
yeah.
clothes buyer.
I'm with you. Yeah,
And every time
it's
I
all
do,
about
I
comfortable
struggle.
footwear.
Right.
Comfortable footwear,
Yes.
right?
Right.
I've made that
Yeah,
turn.
comfortable
I've made that
footwear.
turn
That's
that,
all
you know
that
what?
matters. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And a smile and looking people in the eye
Yeah.
changes everything. People
Mhm.
want to know you see them.
Yes.
You're not looking through them or
Yeah.
away from them, and it helps you personally,
I
even
do.
in those situations.
I
Just
got this thing about, I often tell people, I see you, or I'll do,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
like, or if there's three of you, and it just lets it that
Right.
you're aware of the humanity that exists on
Right.
the other side of
Right.
that hallway, right? Who's
Mhm.
the other people that are. Let me ask you this about making decisions, right? Because that's
Mhm.
a big part of being a leader. So, how much time do you take to make important decisions? If you know that you have a deadline that's coming up in a week, Yvonne, how much
Mhm.
time do you take to make an important decision? How do you minimize that risk of failure?
I think it really, some huge decisions, you know the answer
Right.
before it even
Yeah.
comes up.
Mhm.
An example, we decided 2 years ago not to continue to print in our facility. We had a print facility, it was very expensive. I was going to have to put a whole lot of money,
Right.
capital investment into it that I wasn't going to get back. And so the actual decision was very quick. It
Mhm.
was, I'm going to close my press. I can be printed over here at a sister paper. It's going to cost us less headaches. Now, did I have a lot of heartache over that decision? Yes, but I knew the decision was right immediately.
How
So
much of
the
that is
decision was made very
intuition,
quickly,
Yvonne?
actually. No, I think more than intuition, I think it's just knowing your job,
Yeah, I
knowing
agree.
your organization,
Yeah,
and really the decisions can often been made quickly. Number one, they need to be because you got to move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
But number two, a lot of times by the time a decision needs to be made, you already know the answer.
Mhm.
I was asked a question about the intuition piece. I'm saying,
Yeah.
I said it should be very little. You should have your facts,
Yes.
your information, your
Yeah.
research. You should have done your homework.
Right.
Intuition plays a part in it, but
Yeah.
you have a responsibility as a leader to minimize that risk of potential failure in anything that we do. There are
Yes.
people counting on us, right? So
Yeah.
we
The
gotta make
mission
that
is
happen.
more important. The organization is more important,
Mhm.
I think
than
sometimes we confuse intuition with being thorough and being a learner. I
Mhm.
think maybe instead of intuition, part of our job is to not just know what's happening in our organization, but what's happening in a broader view.
yes.
And that requires an investment of time and learning. And that's not a one-time sit down
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
session. That's something that knowledge builds over time. It's a cumulative reality that you keep building on and adding to by having
Right.
a view of the landscape, doing research, talking to experts. So it might appear as intuition to the people immediately around you,
Right.
but it's actually not intuition. It is based in knowledge and data and
Experience.
Right.
research and a reality that it's our responsibility to have our eyes on.
Let me ask this. So, being a leader involves a lot of different things. One of them is having the ability to deal with criticism, right? We will all be criticized at
Yeah.
one point. I know this group hasn't. I know this
Oh,
group
no.
hasn't, but as you've heard of other people that get criticized,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
How do you learn to
Daily.
deal with that? What advice can you give
There's-
our viewing audience, young people that are coming up? Because this is a hard one. This is one of these things. At first, when and one of the things that getting older has given me is such clarity about the things that matter. Right there, I look back, I'm like, oh my God, like what was I even thinking about? Now I'm like, man, don't worry about it. It's the least
Yeah.
of our worries. But how do you deal with that, right? Because we're in these
Right.
roles where the decisions that we make, some people are going to say, oh my goodness gracious, Yvonne, Phyllis, and Meredith, they walk on water, they're amazing. And then other people are going to be like, oh my God, why are they in the, so how do you deal with criticism? Phyllis, let's start with you. How do you deal
Well,
with
first of all, there's, especially in today's age with social media and all, and it gives a platform for people to
Yeah.
express a lot lot of things that you wouldn't hear otherwise.
Keyboard warriors, right?
And
Yes.
it's noise,
Yeah.
right? And you don't engage the noise
Yeah.
per se. So you've got to
Yeah.
separate that versus somebody giving you what I consider true constructive criticism,
Right,
which
that's a little bit different. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't like to be criticized, right?
who
You want to
does?
block that out.
Yeah.
But as we mature, we learn that there are things we can take from that
Yeah.
and be honest with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
evaluate it, because we get to looking through our own lens at things, and that's one of the things I like to do is to look from all perspectives. I mean, put somebody else's lens on from the other side,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it helps you understand perspectives, and there's things to be learned from that. And maybe you do need to pivot. Maybe
That's
you
right.
do have to adjust,
I-
and
I
that's
think
okay.
that knowing the difference between the noise and the constructive criticism, because we can always get better at what we do.
Sure.
But how do you process that noise in terms of not letting it get to you, right? Not letting it impact you. For me, like I said, I think becoming the grumpy old man has really helped me in that regard. I'm like,
Little thick skins goes
Yeah.
a long
Oh,
way.
yeah.
You just can't wear your emotions
You
on
can't.
your shoulders. And
can't.
if you're confident in what you're doing, you expect
Yeah.
you deal with it all through your
All
life.
the
There are people that want to tear you down.
Yeah.
They threaten to buy success, and it's
Yeah.
easier to tear down than to build themselves up. So
I was
am
Mhm.
dealing
sort of a
with a
perspective.
gentleman once. He was a business owner, and he was dealing with a real difficult situation, and was having a conversation. I just happened to sit next to him, and he was all over the media and dealing with some issues. And he looked at me. He goes, "I bet you thought I wasn't going to show up tonight, right? It was a public
Yeah.
meeting." I said, "I didn't, not even crossed my mind."
Right.
He goes, "Need you to understand." He goes, "I'm built for this." He says, "I love this." And
God bless you, buddy.
He was
Yeah.
sincere about it, and I was like, "What a skill to have, right? Or what a
Right.
quality."
Yeah.
He's like, "I love it, And then
Mhm.
went on, did he's still doing his thing, So
Mhm.
I think that there are some people that naturally just have that ability to just water off my back, but for many of us, that it's a learned skill,
Yeah.
just like
Mhm.
everything else. Yvonne, how do you deal with it?
Not always so well, if
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
being honest.
That's right.
A lot of times it's just blocking out the noise. I just don't go there. I mean, literally, the number of times that I will know somebody said something vicious about me online
Yeah.
because my phone goes off from a friend saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry you're having to go through this. Oh gosh, just block it out." I'm like, well, I would have if you wouldn't have just texted me. I wouldn't have even known about it. But and when people, there's things that I have no idea are happening, and that's not. I mean, I want to know more. I mean, the whole thing
Right.
is I want to know a lot of things. But in that regard, I have to switch that off. I
You
can't be
have
in
to.
every chat
Mhm.
room. I
Yeah.
can't be.
Mm-mm.
I can't
In
be
fact, stay out of
engaging
them.
in that.
Agreed.
I can't
stay
be
out of them.
engaging in that because that's not where
yeah.
world news is happening
No,
anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to tell my staff that sometimes. Sometimes my staff will get really defensive on my behalf,
Yeah.
and they'll carry it around with them, and they'll be hurting for me. And a a lot of time, like I say, a lot of times I just block it out.
Yeah.
But there's knowing the difference between the constructive and the non-constructive, and most of what I hear is the non-constructive
Right.
or the just vicious personal attacks
Yeah.
Right.
that I have to just flush those.
You have to.
But then the antidote I've found is reaching out to people who
Right.
do have constructive feedback.
Sure.
I'm doing an event couple of weeks. Come talk to me, coffee with the publisher. Let's
Yeah.
talk. And my
Let's
daughter
do it.
laughs that I don't drink coffee, but we're going to have coffee. And these are constructive people. These are
Right.
readers who really care about the future of news in our
Mhm.
county. Seeking that out, hearing that there are good people in the world.
Yeah.
helps a
You
lot.
know, I
Yeah.
had a boss tell me I was dealing with a situation, made some decisions and you get criticized for them. I was sulking and,
Yeah.
poor me. And so I go talk to my mentor. My mentor, he was really pragmatic, but very direct. And he goes, well, didn't you ask for this? You asked to be in the role, right? This is what
Right.
you wanted.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He goes, well, then, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Suck it up,
Yeah.
right? And,
it up.
a different time, different age, but his perspective was right. He didn't give me the
Yeah.
whole, let me walk you through this.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you asked to be in this role, right? This is what
Right.
you wanted. You sought this out. He goes, embrace it, right? And he goes, do the right things, make it, right from the approach. If you're making the decisions, the best decisions that you can, that you're going to be just fine. And then he told me
That's
this,
right.
and then he said something that was really, really important to me. He says, one day you're going to look back on this and laugh. Just like we are now. Like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so absolutely. But it is a skill because no one likes to be criticized, right? Meredith, how do you deal with it?
Well,
Does anybody
doesn't get
does
criticism.
anyone
She
criticize
does.
Meredith
I
King?
have plenty of experience with this. And it is a skill that I've had
Yeah.
to develop over time. I didn't handle it well. It felt very personal.
Yeah.
Lots of tears, lots of all of it, right? Early on. I think it's hardest when you know that you can't defend yourself.
You can't, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're never going to have all the information because
Right.
disclosing it would
That's
be poor
right.
leadership on your part.
Yeah.
Right?
So those are all very hard things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, knowing who you are, the principles through which you make decisions,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then having really good personal relationships that aren't based on your role. People who love and care about you because they love and care about you, regardless of
No
the
matter what.
position that you're in. I think that's really important because not everybody should have that much access to your emotional bandwidth.
That's right.
Thank you.
And so,
Now you know why she doesn't get criticized.
I-
oh,
So,
I do, and I have, and it's been costly at
Sure,
times.
absolutely.
yeah.
It's been costly in relationships. It's
absolutely.
been costly, to my emotional health, especially in my younger
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
But I think that knowing that it's unavoidable is really important. You're not going to escape criticism
can't.
and being
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
You just can't.
And I think that we also have to never put ourselves in a position as leaders where we don't care, right? 'Cause
Right.
it's not about
Yeah.
that. It's more about understanding we are doing the best that we can.
Right.
And to Phyllis's point, the noise you put over here,
Mhm.
the constructive things you absolutely have to take in as a leader and work through that. One of my personal goals is that when I retire, I'm going to go to Danny Massey's board meetings or Phil Edwards' board meetings, and I'm just going to do the open mic minute and just make things up, just so I can pay back, just so that I can be on the other side of that. I'm going to look for public meetings. I'm like, I'm going to go to this meeting and rabble rouse just to be on the other side of it. But no, I wouldn't do that to Danny or to Phil. They're great people. But I look forward, and I've got a uniform down. I'm going to have the shirt with the two fighting roosters and the shorts. It's
Oh,
going
I
to be
love
epic.
that.
Oh, it's going to be epic.
Yeah.
That's one of
I wanna
my
watch.
personal goals is
I
to
love
just
it.
go make things up in public meetings. I'm like, well, Meredith did this. And walk out of the room. So we're going to close out with this last theme here. How do you stay grounded in your role? How do you stay humble? You've gotten to these pinnacle roles. You're community leaders. You've accomplished so much in your careers. How do you stay humble and grounded?
My family. They're always going to tell me,
Yeah.
your children always have a way of grounding you. My husband too,
Yeah.
like
They'll hold up a mirror.
Yeah, that's just what.
Yeah.
Yeah, they hold up the mirror, and they, you just don't. When you're taking out the trash, you don't think you're all that important.
That's
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
you're just
Yeah.
a person like anybody else. And realizing, I think that a lot of times when you're invited to things or you're asked for things, you have to ask yourself, is this the role or do they want me?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And remembering that
Yeah.
a job is a
Mhm.
job. Who
That's
you
right.
are as a person is what matters.
That's right. And so much in the leadership role, a lot of those bleed into one another, right? Because
Oh,
we're
yes.
on 24/7,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you form friendships with
You
people
do,
too.
yeah.
Real friendships
Real
that aren't
friendships,
just,
yeah.
they may
And-
have come to you from your role, but
And I'm glad I'm able to pick up the phone and call either one of you. I'm like, hey, holy
Mhm.
cow, I got this issue going on. Walk me off the ledge. It's an
Yeah.
important part to have those friendships and those relationships, but also having the type of relationship with people that are experiencing similar things or
Yes.
have experienced them, or understand your state at the moment, right? Because
Right.
we all experience at one point or another the ups and downs of being leaders in our community. Phyllis, how do you stay grounded?
Well, a couple of things. One, all replaceable.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
From one day to the
Yes.
next. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the work is never done.
Never done.
And so you never feel like you've arrived because if you're done, if you ever
You-
get
you
to
can
that
never
mindset.
stop being hungry. You got to stay
Right.
focused.
And I
yeah.
feel like I have so much to give, even
Yeah.
more now today than I did
Yeah.
before, which makes me enjoy the job even more. And I feel very privileged to be in the position I'm in, and I don't take it for granted. And I heard something yesterday that being in a position where you get to be the light or light shines through you and motivates others and things are getting accomplished is so important. It's when you get to the point that you want the light to shine on you.
This difference.
That's
There's
really
a
That's
difference.
right.
I
Big
like that.
difference.
And
Yeah.
so
Really
it
That's
goes-
such a powerful metaphor. I'm going to steal that.
that.
I love
Yeah,
it.
It
Same.
was
Yeah.
it was really powerful and spoke to me because I'm not comfortable with the light
Neither am
shining
I.
on
I-
me. I like doing the work.
Yep.
I'm passionate. I love this
Yeah.
community. I love the
Yeah.
people I work with. What we do touches the world, and
Yeah. I
that's
often
what
get asked, what do
motivates
you do? Like when you meet somebody, I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I work at the
Mhm.
college. I
College,
never,
mhm.
because once you
Yeah.
tell
Right.
them what your title is,
Mhm.
it changes,
Changes.
and they're going to
Yep.
treat you differently. And,
Right.
and you want to, at least for me, I want to know
Good.
who's at the other end of the line, right? Like, who
Right.
am I
Mhm.
talking to? Who's because in these roles, you got to be able to relate to every single person,
Yep.
and you got to make them all
Right.
feel as important. Doesn't matter. I often tell people, it doesn't matter if it's a board member, if it's a community member, a community leader. It could be the custodian, but whoever walks through our
Right.
doors needs to be treated the exact same way
100%.
and made feel like a human
Mhm.
being that is welcome at our institution.
And I say that all the time too.
Mhm.
My day wouldn't be as good if we didn't have clean offices.
Yeah.
Our
That's right.
security personnel make sure I'm safe when I work late at night.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My hours are not
I know,
not
right?
short.
Yeah, we don't
But
do
that's
that.
my choice.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoy
That's
it.
it.
But it takes the entire system, and
Mhm.
I'm glad
Yeah.
to be a part of that. And I don't ever want to take that
No.
for granted.
Absolutely. Meredith, close us out.
I think two things, just to echo what my friends have shared. Knowing that there's more to learn is a
Mhm.
really good way to stay grounded.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
That, there's just so much more to learn.
Mm-hmm.
We have not hit our ceiling, tapped out. We
No.
don't know
No.
everything.
Nope.
I think that posture of curiosity and learning is a big part of staying grounded. And then I think the other thing is everything that we do is an act of service for
It
other
is.
people. It is a get to, not a have to.
Right.
If it ever starts to feel primarily like a have to instead of a get
You're
to,
done.
we probably need to hang it up.
That's it.
And but when we posture ourselves to serve the people that we're leading and the community that we love, that builds a good case to be committed to growth, to have hard conversations
Mhm.
when we need to have them, to make the decisions that we need to make, and to dignify the person who's standing across the room from us or sitting at the table.
That dignity piece is so important, Meredith. When we get these titles, particularly in higher ed is, I think we lose our mind about titles and we give ourselves these exalted titles, it's not the title that makes the leader. It's the person that is
Mhm.
in the role that can help bring value to that title.
Mhm.
But you work with people. That's how we get things done. And you have to be, you have to treat people with that dignity, that respect. You want everybody to be uh, treated in the same way, right? And not equally, but just in terms of be nice to people, be sincere with people, smile. What's going on in their world? Find out.
Mhm.
That kindness goes a long way when it comes from the heart. It's important to stay grounded because at the end of the day, our titles, to your point, Phyllis, you could be replaced tomorrow, and
Mhm.
it happens, right? We see it so often.
Right.
So while you have the privilege of serving in the role of the leader, make the best of it, right? Make the
Mhm.
best of it. Serve your community. Be in the service of others, because that's what we all do. We're not in the for-profit business. We are all in the service of our community, and the community are ultimately the ones that allow us to stay in these roles, right? So
Mhm.
we owe
Yeah.
it all to them. So,
Absolutely.
ladies, I want to thank you so much for being here today. To our viewing audience, I think that if there's one takeaway from today's podcast is that find something that you believe in and that you have purpose for. We
Mhm.
often hear the cliche of do something that you love, and yeah, there's a part to it, but find something that gives you the kind of purpose that has been demonstrated today, and you'll do great at your career, and you'll do wonderful things in your roles as leaders. So, thank you for joining us on this podcast, ladies. Thanks again for
Thank
being
you.
here. It's
Thank
always
you.
amazing to have you in the studio. I can't wait to have you back on different topics, but.
Yeah.
Appreciate you taking time out of your very busy days. I know you're all extremely busy, and just wanted to thank you for spending time on our show, Chomp Talk, where we talk all things higher ed and leadership. So I appreciate you taking time, but also thank you for all that you do in our community.
Mm.
You ladies are amazing, and I'm glad I can call you my friends and colleagues, and I look forward to all the things that you're going to accomplish in your role.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much,
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes,
Solis.
ma'am.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much, viewing audience, for joining us. We'll see you next time on our next episode of Chom Time. Do us a favor in the meantime, until we get to that next episode, smash that like button, subscribe,
Right.
make sure you let people know that we've got amazing guests on our
Yeah.
show. Thank you so much for being a
Yeah.
part of Brazosport College.